Coming up on this Thursday edition of Newsline at noon, a European robot probe makes a historic landing on a comet, but an anchoring system problem may hamper its mission to discover the mysteries of the solar system. Air travel plans and office hours are rescheduled in Korea as some 640,000 high school seniors take college entrance exams, which could change the course of their lives. Plus, Korea's central bank freezes its key rate despite calls from policymakers for expansionary monetary policies. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
It's noon Thursday, November 13th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in live from Seoul. I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome, and we start with the comet landing, a truly historic moment for mankind and a feat that's made science fiction fact. The Rosetta mission has successfully made a first ever landing on an icy rock flying at stupendous speed through space.
It was a long and hard-won victory, but scientists aren't completely out of the woods yet, as challenges remain to more firmly secure the space probe to the comet's surface. Kim Young-gil has the story.
There were scenes of jubilation at the European Space Agency as the Rosetta's lander made a historic touchdown on the speeding comet. Scientists say they received confirmation from the small robotic probe named Philae after a roughly 7-hour descent as it made a bumpy landing on the surface of Comet 67P. The actual status remains unclear, however, after harpoons designed to firmly attach Philae to the comet failed to fire.
So we have science data coming, we have pictures, we have measurements from all the instruments. Science continue coming. Of course, the scientific experiments will start a bit later.
The landing is a feat of space engineering, considering the whole expedition hinged on unproven landing technology, and the comet is whizzing through space at a staggering 18 kilometers per second. In search of the secrets of the solar system, the mission has been 2 decades in the making and explores not just life on Earth, but the possibility of life elsewhere. Scientists also hope to discover more about comets, which are predominantly clusters of dust and ice.
There's a lot of new information about the origins of our solar system, of our own planet, the water which is on our planet. Does it come from such comets? And I think that indeed justifies all this effort.
The probe will start doing scientific experiments, taking pictures and analyzing the comet's surface once it's properly secured and stabilized. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now to news a little closer to home, or more specifically here in Korea. Hundreds of thousands of high school seniors are taking perhaps the most important test of their young lives today.
They certainly are. 640,000 of them, in fact, are taking this test at more than 1,200 venues across the country, and they're sitting down for the so-called College Scholastic Ability Test, which officially got underway at 8:40 a.m. Korea time. That's a little over 3 hours ago. The test, which consists of 5 sections, will take roughly 8 hours to complete. The students' results will decide whether they can get into the universities of their choice. In consideration for the exam takers, banks and offices around the nation, including even the stock market, opened 1 hour later than usual, and more subway trains and buses were laid on to ensure the students were not late for this very important test. Even airplanes will be forbidden to make takeoffs or landings for 35 minutes this afternoon during the listening test hours. So just how important is the College Scholastic Ability Test? Well, it is so important that there are a number of superstitions students follow in the hope that it will give them a really high score in the test.
Right, from not washing their hair to eating or not eating certain types of food. Some students say it's better to go that extra mile just to stay on the safe side. Connie Lee has more.
So how far would you go to ace your college entrance exams?
I won't be washing my hair. To do well on the exam, I'm eating taffy and chocolates.
Not your typical study habits, but the exam is deemed so important that the students will do whatever it takes for that high score, even taking part in some
superstitions.
One of the biggest ones is that students eat the right snacks. It's either taffy or rice cakes. Why? Because they're sticky. These come in neat gift sets this time of year, and as they say, eating these snacks will help the study material stick in the students' minds and help them stick to their top college choice from their high scores. While these snacks are okay to eat, one superstition says that test takers should avoid eating seaweed soup. So much so that some restaurants specializing in seaweed even close on this day.
I opened my restaurant on exam day before, but no customers came in. Since then, I've closed every year.
There's a belief that the slippery seaweed could lead the test taker to slip away from success and fail. But for success on test day, receiving certain items is also common.
As good luck charms, students either get a fork or a pair of tweezers to help them pick or pluck out the correct test answers.
Since most of the questions on the exam are multiple choice, it is quite important to make the right picks. Finally, there are some students who avoid washing their hair ahead of the test.
My friends and I believe that washing your hair can wash away what you studied.
These superstitious acts show just how much importance the nation places on education. It's not like most Koreans actually believe in these superstitions, but adhering to them acts as a bit of a stress reliever.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And shifting gears now to the nation's economic front, Korea's central bank has held its key rate steady at 2% this month. But with mounting pressure to tackle the weakening Japanese yen and prop up the still sluggish domestic economy, pundits are expecting a rate cut down the road. Hwang Jie has the details.
The Bank of Korea has chosen to take a wait-and-see approach to gauge the impact of two previous rate cuts in the second half of this year. It held the key rate unchanged at 2% in November following its monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday. The central bank cut the rate in August and October each by 0.25 percentage point. The move, which came in line with government efforts to prop up the ailing domestic economy, left the country's base rate at a historic low not seen since the height of the global financial crisis in 2009. Still, market expectations are mounting over an additional rate cut. They're being driven by Japan's surprise move to expand its monetary easing, which has pushed the Japanese yen to its weakest point in 7 years. That is stoking concerns among Korean policymakers as a weak yen erodes the price competitiveness of Korean exporters against its Japanese rivals in the global market. The domestic economy remaining sluggish despite aggressive government stimulus measures also leaves room for more rate cuts. Some analysts say, however, that the central bank will stand pat with the current rate for the time being in the face of a possible capital outflow stemming from the U.S. Federal Reserve's stimulus tapering. Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol also told reporters last month that the 2% key rate should help the domestic economy regain its growth momentum. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
The value of mergers and acquisitions among Korea-based companies hit a 2-year high in the first half of this year, surpassing $10 billion. The Financial Supervisory Service attributes the increase to so-called mega deals, including the one between Samsung SDI, the unit in charge of developing battery technologies, and its affiliate Seoul Industries. That one alone was worth more than $3 billion. Another mega deal involved the country's second-largest internet portal, Daum, and the nation's #1 mobile messaging service, Kakao. However, the volume of cross-border M&As took up less than 2% of the total volume at around $180 million in the first half.
Now, millions of dollars have been donated, but today marks the first day of Korea's physical help in the fight against Ebola. Later this afternoon, a small team of medical personnel will set off on a long trip to Sierra Leone, one of the West African countries hit hardest by the outbreak that's now killed more than 5,000 people. Connie Kim reports.
Korea dispatches its first group of medical personnel to Sierra Leone this Thursday to give the Ebola-stricken country a much-needed helping hand. Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry says the volunteering doctors, nurses, and military officers will first visit Britain before traveling to the West African country. The group is being dispatched in advance to check the medical facilities and working conditions in Sierra Leone. Staying there until November 21st, the Korean team will work at a British Ebola treatment facility in the capital Freetown with other health experts from countries such as Britain and Denmark. The deployment comes as the World Health Organization reports the total death toll from this Ebola outbreak has now surpassed 5,000. The number of new cases are slowing in Liberia and Guinea, but Ebola is still spreading fast in Sierra Leone. On Sunday alone, 111 new Ebola cases were reported in Sierra Leone, one of the highest daily rates ever recorded. And making matters worse is that only 19 out of the 53 treatment centers in the country are operating due to a lack of medical supplies and personnel. As fears grow about the devastating effects Ebola is having on Sierra Leone, Korea has vowed to continue its support even after the first team returns to Korea. After receiving assessments from the first task force team, the Korean government will decide upon the final number of medical staff to send to Sierra Leone. 145 doctors, nurses, laboratory technicians, and safety managers applied to join the global efforts. The number of applicants far outstripped the government's expectations, but Seoul only plans to send about 30 personnel to the West African country by the end of December. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
4 days have passed since an iconic Korean singer was denied entry into Japan, but the Korean government is still waiting for an answer as to why. The speculation is that Eoh Jin-joo's recent involvement in a concert that promoted Korea's sovereignty over an island that Japan lays false claim to is the reason, but Tokyo isn't talking. Now, Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korea's foreign ministry on Wednesday summoned a Japanese diplomat to demand an explanation for why Korean singer Eoh Jin-joo was denied entry into Japan. He arrived at Japan's Haneda on Sunday, only to be sent home 4 hours later, without a clear reason for why he was being turned back. Local media speculates it's due to an August concert the singer participated in on Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo, which Japan falsely claims as its own. A foreign ministry official told the Japanese diplomat that the Korean government wants a clear explanation from the Japanese side. The diplomat said they would relay the message to their government. Japan's chief cabinet secretary Yoshihide Suga has said previously that E's entry denial had nothing to do with Dokdo Island. He said the issue had been dealt with properly in accordance with Japan's immigration and refugee laws, but did not elaborate further. E's agency says the Japanese immigration officials initially told him he was being turned back due to recent events, implying the Dokdo concert. When he rejected, the officials cited an arrest for marijuana use in 1990, even though the singer had been to Japan numerous times since. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broome and Eoh Jin-joo.
I'm Eoh Jin-joo with
Market researcher, strategy analytics, and Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about.
After wrapping up her stay in Beijing for the APEC leaders meeting, Korean President Park Geun-hye arrived in Myanmar Wednesday for the ASEAN +3 and East Asia summits. Soon after touching down, she sat down for a one-on-one with her Indian counterpart. Our Choo-sun, who's traveling with the president, followed this report.
Ahead of this year's East Asia Summit in Myanmar, President Park Geun-hye held talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the first time since he took office in May.
재임 중에 양국 간의 협력 모멘텀이 더욱 강화될 수 있도록 함께 노력해 나가기를 기대하면서 또 오늘의 회담이 양국 관계 발전에 그 소중한 밑거름이 되었으면 합니다.
I hope we can cooperate to further strengthen Korea and India's relations.
Praising Prime Minister Modi's bold initiatives to attract foreign investors to India's industrial and infrastructure projects, President Park asked him to support Korean firms aiming to win large-scale orders. To that end, the Indian leader welcomes such participation and investments by Korea. Suggesting cooperation in coal gas development and nuclear energy, the Korean president invited her Indian counterpart to make a state visit to Korea next year. On Thursday, the 18 East Asia Summit state leaders will discuss pressing global issues such as the Ebola outbreak and the threat posed by Islamic State militants in the Middle East. At the following ASEAN Plus 3 summit, President Park plans to talk about her unification drive and the North Korean nuclear issue with the 10 Southeast Asian nations, China and Japan. Attention is also being paid to the ASEAN launching their economic community by the end of next year. The ASEAN is Korea's #2 trading region with a total trade volume of $135 billion last year. 최유선, Arirang News, Naypyidaw.
The United States and China have reached new climate, military, trade, and visa agreements during 2 days of summit talks in the Chinese capital. Watchers also say Presidents Barack Obama and Xi Jinping took great strides in soothing their often strained relationship. Hwang Seung-yi reports on the meeting.
In his bilateral meeting with U.S. President Barack Obama on Wednesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed the importance of a new model for the relationship between the two world powers.
The establishment of a new model for the relationship between China and the U.S. is in line with the basic interests of the people from both our countries, and that it can also help protect the peace, stability, and prosperity of the Asia-Pacific region and the world.
At the meeting, China and the United States agreed on new targets for greenhouse gas emissions. President Obama set a new goal of reducing U.S. levels from between 26% to 28% by 2025, compared with 2005 levels. President Xi did not set a specific target, but said emissions would peak by 2030, marking the first time that China, the world's biggest polluter, set an approximate date for such a goal. The two leaders also agreed on reducing the possibility of military clashes in the air and sea. President Obama said despite their differences, he was encouraged by the honest and constructive dialogue he had with his Chinese counterpart.
But what I've been very encouraged by is your willingness, Mr. President, to engage in an honest and constructive dialogue around those differences and ensuring that we manage them in a peaceful and effective way.
Noting that this year marks the 35th year of diplomatic relations between the world's two largest economies, President Xi said China was willing to further expand cooperation with the U.S. Hwang Seung-yi, Arirang News.
Now, the two leaders also spoke in one voice on the need to keep the Korean peninsula free of nuclear weapons. U.S. President Barack Obama said North Korea should not and cannot be allowed to succeed in its nuclear development program. Chinese President Xi Jinping, meanwhile, called for an early resumption of the six-party nuclear talks, reaffirming that the issue needs to be solved through dialogue. Let's take a listen to what President Xi said during a joint press conference with President Obama.
We maintain that we should address the Korean Peninsula issue through dialogue and negotiations. Relevant parties should have active contacts and dialogue so as to create conditions for the relaunch of the six-party talks.
Now, from North Korea's denuclearization to golf now. And she's already established herself as the youngest winner and the youngest millionaire on the LPGA Tour, but now Korean-born golfer Lydia Ko can add another string to her bow. The 17-year-old New Zealander has been named as the youngest ever winner of the Rookie of the Year title, and it wasn't even close either. There are still 3 events left on the tour calendar, but Ko ran away with the title because she currently has more than 1,500 points, which is more than her 2 closest competitors combined. On its website, the LPGA said rookie jitters are non-existent for Eoh, who stands third in the overall ranking with 2 victories and 9 top 10 finishes. Eoh said her rookie season has been a dream come true and that she's happy to have achieved some of her goals along the way. Back here in the Korean capital, and the annual Food Week Korea event has kicked off this week in Seoul with exhibitors from all 4 corners of the world showing off their locally produced foods, as well as hopefully offering us a sneak peek into the future of the food industry. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Food experts from around the globe have gathered under one roof, united by the theme Food for the Future. The annual Food Week Korea offers companies a chance to expand their scope of business and discuss changing industry trends.
Food Week Korea will be an opportunity for the domestic food industry to promote exports as well as increase exchanges abroad.
ASEAN member countries are also taking part to help promote their lesser-known food products.
I'm great can be here so we can promote our products from Moonlight. We hope we can find the market to introduce this cruise shrimp in the Korean markets.
Solely using locally produced foods, they held a special cooking session to give visitors a chance to taste a range of their unique dishes.
It was a great experience to try food we can't eat every day. I was able to try shrimp, dried fish, as well as some alcoholic beverages.
Also on display are Korean food products that highlight changing trends like the rise in single households and demand for food on the go. From Korean-style burritos to pre-packaged noodles, rice, and other ready-to-eat meals, the wide selection is attention-grabbing. And small and medium-sized companies are also here in full force to capitalize on opportunities to sell overseas, like this local company that hopes to increase its brand awareness and gain a competitive edge in the global market.
Along with the aim of boosting development in the food industry, exhibitors have come with hopes of promoting their products to a larger consumer base at the event, which runs through Saturday at COEX in southern Seoul. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, it's time now to get a check on some of the other global headlines we're following on this Thursday lunchtime here in Seoul. Joining us, as always, is Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Center.
Eunice, concern is rising in Ukraine as NATO reports it is seeing multiple columns of Russian equipment entering the country's rebel-held east.
Indeed, Russian tanks, artillery, air defense systems, and troops have crossed the porous border into Ukraine over the past several days, according to NATO's commander in Europe, confirming earlier reports by Ukraine and also international observers. From Bulgaria, General Philip Breedlove said while he did not have an exact count nor an intention, his guess was the reinforcements were headed to pro-Russia rebels to help them hold on to eastern Ukrainian territory for the long term. Kiev has redeployed troops to the region, citing that a new military offensive could very well be on the horizon, despite Moscow's insistence that the reports are alarmist and have no truth. A ceasefire that was agreed by Kiev and the separatists 2 months ago appear all but scrapped. Turkish police have detained 12 nationalists belonging to the Turkish Youth Union after the group posted a video online of an assault on 3 American sailors. They had walked out of a U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer, the USS Ross, docked in Istanbul for maintenance, and the video at one point shows the assailants pulling plastic bags over the sailors' heads, calling them murderers. The attack, which happened in broad daylight at the touristy Eminence district, was condemned by the U.S. Embassy as appalling. Officials said the sailors returned to the ship unharmed. And a horrifying nail-biting scene ended in a giant sigh of relief when 2 window washers dangling at a near vertical position outside One World Trade Center in New York City were pulled to safety by emergency personnel. They were stuck for nearly 2 hours around lunchtime outside the 68th floor when one side of the cables attached to the hanging platform apparently developed slack, causing that list. Firefighters had to cut through 3 layers of glass, 2 with diamond saws, to reach the workers who were described as calm despite the circumstances.
The weather isn't being very generous for college entrance exam takers. It's the coldest exam day in 16 years here in the capital, and the cold wave advisory is still in place for many parts of the nation. And we've also had high levels of yellow dust in the upper regions early this morning, including here in Seoul, but it has cleared out and the readings are now on the moderate level. Also, a fair amount of sunshine will dominate the whole peninsula, but won't help to warm things up as the daytime high here in Seoul will only make it to 5, while Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 7 and Busan should climb to 9. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will be getting up to 9 and 6 respectively. Well, it seems like this cold snap will ease up tomorrow afternoon. Highs will go back to the average for this time of the year, but the lows will remain on the freezing side. That's all for now. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you very much for the weather, as always, Gianna. Those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Join us again at the same time on Friday. Thank you for watching.